WPI presentations. My name is Bob Hirsch. I'm a professor at WPI. So I thought I would answer questions that might be in your head. One question is, what is WPI? And the other question would be, why are we here? An existential question that I'll try to explain. So to explain these questions, I think I need to have a little bit of history. I hope you indulge me with this. So WPI, we're a Polytechnic institute that was founded at the time when Hermopolis was one of the most important cities in Greece. We were founded in 1865. We have 7,000 students, about 5,500 undergraduates, and 550 professors and faculty members. WPI in 1865, it was founded by the titans of industry in Worcester. Worcester is an industrial city about 100 kilometers west of Boston. And these titans of industry, they saw the possibility of a polytechnic as providing them with engineers for innovation. And for a long time, WPI engineers worked for local industries. But you think local industries, but if anybody's been to New York and has walked from Brooklyn, from the Dumbo neighborhood in Brooklyn, and they saw in front of them the incredible landscape, cityscape of Manhattan, as you walk across that bridge, you might want to think a little bit about WPI engineers, graduates who worked in those factories. They made the thousands of miles of steel cable, which is suspending the bridge. So WPI, in some ways, I think, has provided some infrastructure for our iconic American buildings. The other thing I wanted to just talk about WPI's early history is if anybody likes Westerns, American Westerns. But one of the things about American Westerns is you see cowboys always driving cattle to some place, but you never wonder, like, where did the cattle stay before they were driven to get on to go to the stockyards? If you look at those movies, you never see trees for wooden fences or stones for stone fences. What you see are, you might not even see them, are wires. So WPI graduates in Worcester were responsible, among a few other factories, for making barbed wire. So barbed wire was one of the things that allowed the American West to be settled for agriculture. So you might wonder, well, none of our students are doing barbed wire, none of them are making metal cables. By 1970, I've jumped up 100 years, it was clear that the industrial base in Worcester was declining. There was very little reason for the university to keep trying to develop engineers for industries that were being located elsewhere or industries that were dying out. And so in 1970, WPI created something that was very revolutionary for universities. I don't know if any of you work for universities, but universities, to actually have them change is like moving the Blue Star Ferry. It doesn't move very quickly. And what WPI wanted was, how can we train a new generation of engineers and scientists? And what that came from was two things. One, the war in Vietnam, where American technology was being used to subdue a national movement. And two, the beginnings of Earth Day, the question about sustainable development. And so what was revolutionary about the response of WPI is they created something like this. We're not going to have graded courses anymore. We're going to just do projects. Projects where students work with local organizations on open-ended, difficult, socially complex problems to provide them the opportunities for a few things. One, to work together, to work with others, but also to understand the questions around what is the ethical responsibility of people who are going to be in the control of the technologies. So what is the ethical responsibility of technologists now? So this was something that we tried to do. So the first project centers we had started 50 years ago. One was in Washington, D.C., which, as you can probably know, we definitely need some more project centers there. And the other was in London. Since then, over the last 50 years, we've developed around 45 project centers throughout the world. And the project centers work in such a way that, for example, I would, as a center director, every project center has a center director, we go to the project site and we talk with people, organizations, that might have an interest in working with our students. The students, they're prepared before they come here by doing some background research on the topics. And when they come to a place like Syros, this is all they do. It's not a study abroad program. They're actually developing research and evidence-based research to help organizations on issues that are of importance to them. So I see some of our wonderful partners here in the audience. So why Syros? In part it's serendipity, in part it's, who knows, the axial lines of existence that brought us here. For 10 years we had a project center in Thessaloniki. And in Thessaloniki I worked with people who have relocated here. And when they said to me one time, why don't you, after the project work in Thessaloniki, they said, why don't you come to Syros just for a holiday? But in the back of their mind, I know that they were now thinking that this would be a good place for a project center. And so when I came here, I was introduced to people, the university, other organizations, and I thought this was a wonderful place to bring our students to work on excellent projects that we've developed over the past 2 years. So I think that's the short explanation about how we came to Syros and what we're trying to do here with our partnering organizations to help our students work at sort of at the intersection of technology and social welfare, social benefit. This is the idea that we're trying to do, to broaden the idea of what an engineer can be, what an engineer or scientist's ethical responsibilities could be, and how, in many ways, apart from that sort of high-sounding language, how to connect with people, how to kind of understand that there's a world beyond the boundaries of the United States. So I'll leave it there, but I want to introduce some of our wonderful partners who can say a few words to you. And I think our first partner would be the Dean.
Mr. Cornelius is here, he's online.
One moment. Sorry. Μια στιγμή να φτιάξω το μικρόφωνο.
Μια χαρά.
Ωραία, σας ακούμε και εμείς. Μια χαρά, μια χαρά.
Τέλεια. Οκ. Okay, the truth is that I would like to be there. However, a flu prevents me from being there. And actually, this is the reason that after this short speech, I have to leave. There is an appointment. But I hope that this is the second year that we have the pleasure to welcome Bob and the students, the WPI students. I hope that we'll have the chance to continue this collaboration. And I can promise both myself to Bob and to everybody that the next year I will be above all this grateful audience. So we had the pleasure over the past 2.5 months in Syros to have, I think, 11 WPI students work alongside to bring to life three remarkable projects. I guess that during the course of this event, you have the chance to hear a lot about these three projects, about the 3D model culture in the Syros Islands. The bonds, the emotional bonds that the residents form with their island through their presence in public spaces, and of course the project under the mentoring of our vice rector, which was about promoting potable water refill stations, reducing plastic waste. More or less, this project, I guess that Bob explained you well the rationale behind this project. Actually, is how we can manage to bring together the academic excellence to sustainability and to technological innovation. The partnership, our partnership actually, University of Virginia and WPI, demonstrates that international collaboration and friendship actually can achieve, can manage to break the boundaries, the knowledge boundaries, and this is good for the students, due to these 11 WPI students. Of course, the supporters of this project, being both faculty members and other guests or distinguished members that support the students, create this tangible outcome. And we look forward to many more research achievements in the years ahead. And as I said to the beginning, I really hope the next year to be present and to taste this project with you inside, face to face, rather than through this Zoom link. Thanks a lot for your patience, and I wish you a fruitful event.
Thank you very much. So now I think if possible, the partners from the Pana Maria, do you want to say a few words?
It is I.
Yes. Sounds like a Shakespearean. It is I.
Yes, hi from me as well. I am here today with too many hats. This year we've been helping a group of students from WPI from Apanomeria, from Kinsepa Apanomeria. We're very glad to have been involved in this project. We look forward to having more collaboration in the future in different topics of our expertise perhaps, and helping more students link with the local community and have a taste. Sorry, my colleague is trying to say something.
What was the project?
What was the project? Yes, the project. The project, as you will see, was about the public space use of Syros and of Ermoupoli more specifically, which is a very hot and contested topic, I will say, in the context of the changes that are happening on the islands, in the context of planning that is going on with τοπικό πολιτικό σχέδιο and so on, with what is going on with tourism, with what space we have for us, what space we have for others, what space we have not at all, and discussing this and at a first level being aware is the first very important step for actually being able to change things further. So the students, as you will see, have helped us take a step in their direction. Thank you.
Ωραία. Να μιλήσουμε κι εμείς στα ελληνικά. Ωραία. Εμείς είμαστε στο WPI, περισσότεροι μας ξέρετε, η Ρουπίνα και η Αλεξή εδώ. Με τον Bob και με τα παιδιά, τους 4 φίλους μας, ασχολήθηκαν με τη Γιάρο, φτιάξαν, όπως είδατε, πριν ένα τρισδιάστατο χάρτη του νησιού και του κτηρίου, του βασικού κτηρίου, που κρύβεται εδώ. Αυτό που θα ήθελα να πω είναι ότι με κάποιο τρόπο αυτό το project είναι έχει αυτή την αρχή της βιωσιμότητας μέσα του. Γιατί συνήθως οι εργασίες που κάνουν οι μαθητές φτάνουν μέχρι την παρουσίαση. Αλλά αυτό το project θα το χρησιμοποιούμε κάθε μέρα. Θα είναι ένας χάρτης που θα είναι στο ΚΕΠΕΑ, στην έκθεση, τη φωτογραφική έκθεση που έχουμε του ΛΕΒΕ, και αφού, όπως θα το δείτε σε λίγο, αυτό κάνει μια διάδραση με το κοινό, άρα εμείς θα το χρησιμοποιούμε με τους μαθητές που θα έρθουν. Θα είναι ένα μάθημα, δηλαδή, μας έχουμε δώσει ένα μάθημα, το οποίο θα χρησιμοποιείτε συνέχεια. Κάνε μια.
Short, briefly in English, okay? He said you will talk about the 3D printed map that you have achieved to do. But what is most important in our partnership and collaboration on this project is that from the point you will have given this, your achievement anyway, it will start a new life, an educational life within our premises. The future of this, usually a presentation of this kind of a university subject as yours finishes at the presentation point. So this project of yours will start a second life, its main life, afterwards. That is to say, it will take part in our educational project on Syros, and it will be visited very often by classes who will be following, will be attending our project on Syros. So it will have a longer life, longer than usual, hopefully as long as we stay in the
Και το τελευταίο είναι ότι νομίζω ότι αυτό το project για τη Syros, για τα παιδιά, είναι βιώσιμο και για αυτούς. Δηλαδή θεωρώ ότι η ενασχόληση με τη Syros, αυτό το πράγμα θα το ξαναβρούν μπροστά τους οι 4 μαθητές, όχι επειδή θα ξαναφτιάξουν με drone ένα οποιοδήποτε άλλο κτίριο, που μπορεί να το κάνουν και αυτό, αλλά γιατί η Syros είναι ένα μάθημα ευαισθησίας, ένα μάθημα ευαισθησίας και όταν ασχολούμαστε με την ιστορία του και όταν ασχολούμαστε με το παρόν του νησιού, και είναι και ένα μάθημα ελευθερίας. Επομένως, για αυτά τα 4 παιδιά και για αυτούς που κάνουν μάθημα, αλλά και για αυτούς τους 4, θα είναι σίγουρα, ελπίζουμε, ένα μάθημα ευαισθησίας και ελευθερίας που θα το βρίσκουν μπροστά τους. Και τους ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ γι' αυτό. Τους το χαρίζω.
Hopefully this project of yours will be sustainable even for you from now on, mostly as a sense, as a meaning, because it's sure it has given you the sense of empathy and sensibility, and the sense of what freedom really is. So this will be a very good lesson, hopefully, for you for your whole lifetime. We thank you a lot.
Thank you. I mean, after that eloquence and particularly the beautiful sound of Greek, I apologize for having to speak in English. Two things I just want to say briefly before we start the presentations. The work the students have done, it demands in some ways all of the skills and knowledge of what social scientists do. In-depth interviewing, archival research, thematic analysis of transcripts, geographical information systems. The students have, before coming here, they didn't have any of this training. Their training is in engineering and in science. And so we asked them to step into these disciplines in these areas as a way of enlarging their boundaries too. And one way I think that we try to help them do that, it's not easy to do that, is to have someone who is a brilliant site coordinator for our projects. Because it's not just a question of finding information, we're talking with someone, it's building the confidence of our students to take that step to talk with a real person, a real person. And I want to give my utmost thanks to Panos Mavridis, who I'd like to without whose help, the projects would not have got to the point where they are. So, I'll say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robert Hurst. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to be your local coordinator for the Syros WPI Project Center in the October to December projects. It's been an amazing experience. Thank you all for everything from the first day until today. It was amazing going to Syros with you. It was amazing trying to find people to talk and interview together. From the way back when you were to the States until here, you were different people when you came, and I believe that you're different people now. You're brilliant in Greek. I can say that. The master class was a success, a total success. It's been a very special year from having this position, this opportunity, and I would like to thank all of you, and thank you all of you for being here today, and as well as from the online system. Also, special thanks to Dr. Abraham Mavridis, who contributed in the GIS systems. His help was of great importance, and I believe that the whole group worked as a perfect engine. I hope your experience in Syros was great, that you also had fun, which is also important, and we of course wait all of you to come back and see you again. And off to the next year. Thank you very much.
So apologies in advance to the camera guy who will be walking from the screen a little bit. So, we're going to be talking about a bit of our partnership with KPIA and a bit about what we've been doing in our time at Syros. I'm Grant.
I'm Alexis. Yasis.
Cameron. I'm Dominic. So, starting off, let's introduce what KPIA actually is. So, they are an environmental education organization. So they have 12 different programs, one of which being the Syros program. And this is their space. This is their main classroom for their Syros program. And it's very well decorated. They have lots of great photos, lots of desks for the students to sit there. But you know, it's missing something. And I know it's kind of funny, but it is. And so they came up to us and they asked WPI. They wanted something physical to bring the experience of visiting the island to the classroom. And so that is what we've been tasked with doing. So if you think about what Syros is, it has a few different things. It has this great ecology. So you have all these monk seal populations around it. You have different types of birds. You have these seabirds, you have puffins, all on the island. And the entire area around the island is all a marine protected area, where all these species can live in isolation. But also, it has this rich history. It was mentioned in Homer's The Odyssey as a place of exile. It has been treated like that for hundreds of years. These are hand-drawn photos also in KPIA space by prisoners, actually. And so you have this very, very rich history in the island that has to be captured as well. So okay, so you have this island, and it's rich in ecology, it has a great history. And the way KPA likes to handle teaching this island is through hands-on learning. So they have a lot of different activities they do with their youth groups. These are all actually painted by their students to try to portray the emotions the prisoners might have been feeling. They also do things like pottery and soundscapes. So it was really important that we were also hands-on. They wanted something that would be hands-on for the students. So we need a model that has that shows ecology. We needed something that shows history, and we wanted something that's hands-on. So we took all three of these things, and we combined them into one interactive. Here's model. Now I'm going to hand off to Don. We'll run through an overview, and we're going to pause talking a little bit, and he'll just show you how you use it.
Yeah, so before I show you how the experience works, we have a brief overview. It's of course made up of the island terrain and the blown-up prison model, because the prison is such a significant part of the island story, so we wanted to represent it on a larger scale. So now I'll connect. Let's see. So the experience is based on embedded QR code markers that link to digital content that we built into CAPIA's existing website. So here on my phone, and any phone can access this, we have a QR code scanner. And so students that are visiting the space can scan the marker. I know. Which, if the Wi-Fi is quick, will bring me to the accompanying information for the location that I scanned, which this was the prison. So each page has content that involves immersive features such as a 360-degree camera view, which I'll show you in a second. But we have a text overview of each point. Information was provided by KPA to ensure a respectful presentation of the sensitive history from Syros. It also has an English translation for those of us who don't speak Greek. And this is a "You Are Here" map showing you which point you scanned and its relation on its location on the island. There's also a gallery with images from the WWF Syros Story Project, which we worked in partnership with them to use some of their photographs, as well as some audio files for soundscape audio and any video content that was relevant to that location. So now, if I press View 360-degree camera, it should link me to a page where you can immerse yourself in some of the locations along the eastern bay. So the user can spin around like this and see what it might look like if you were standing right there on the island. So I have a couple of these preloaded to show you some more. This is the cemetery on the island. We have right in the middle of the first cove. We have the entrance to the hospital building, which is the home of the goats now. And yeah, we also have ecological content. The seal area point is right here on the model. And this includes audio and pictures from seals. We'll see if I can hear them, maybe. Yes. Sounds of the seals and the dolphins, so that students can immerse themselves and see what it might look like if they were on that point of the Syros Island. And we will, of course, allow if people want to interact with the model after the presentation.
So now let's talk about how we represented our educational goals using this model. So first off, we had these 20 points of interest, which were provided to us both by KPA and WWF, and we connected this to the, and these were represented by the markers as you saw before earlier. And to connect it to the website, we made content that was provided to us both by KPA, and it was provided to us by KPA with sort of the idea of respectfully representing it. And we also use information from WWF's Yaros story website, as well as anything we found on the island when we visited.
So of course a big component of the model is the island terrain itself. And this was made using satellite data. So using an open source repository, we got this data for free up in the top left from a website called Open Topography, where it allows you to select a region anywhere in the world, and it gives you a list of all of the satellite data that's available for that point. So for this, we used data from the Copernicus satellites from the European Space Agency, and that gives us a GeoTIFF file, as shown in the top right. And that's not very helpful for us because it's a bit of a blurry mess. So we imported it into QGIS. And this is using what's called a hillshade representation, which kind of tries to figure out how the lighting might hit the island and allows you to see that you downloaded the right file. And then using a plugin in QGIS, we can transform that GeoTIFF into what's called an STL file, which allows us to modify it, create the tiles, and it also is understood by 3D printing software. So that's how we got the island terrain. And also we have the prison model with our little goat on there, which was modeled in a software called Autodesk Revit. So we started from the ground up with the exterior walls, and then this second image shows the first roof being added, and we had to do the walls before we could do any of the details, and there's lots of intricate courtyards in the prisons. So from the ground up, we built the roofs of all of the sections, and then finally filled in the fine details, such as the windows, doors, these circular roof dormers that come out above some of the doorways, as well as some of the arches, and allowed us to get to where we are today. And so as part of our project, we wanted to make sure that the model was engaging for students who are coming to learn about Yaros. So there were some certain model size expectations that KPA wanted us to follow. We of course wanted the model to be large enough to accommodate multiple students interacting at the same time. And so before we even left to come to Syros, we made a prototype model just to practice the workflow and make sure that we'd be able to print something in our short time here. So this is the first version of the model. It's printed using a 1x vertical scaling. So that means that if you were to shrink the island of Yaros to this size, that's what it would look like. And it looks a little flat when it's this small. So we wanted it to be a little more engaging for the students. And so after seeing the model in KPA space, we decided that a 2x vertical scaling would be more engaging. So this, within the QGIS software, we can export it on a larger scale. And you can see the first version behind it is significantly smaller. So these are some of the digital renders that we went through to see how different vertical scalings might look. So the gray one here on the bottom left is the original version, and the green is where we are now. And there was some in between, and then there was the 2.5, which we thought was a little too much of an exaggeration. So we landed on this green one. That's what you see here.
Now for exactly how we integrate all these things. Some things we want to prioritize in this model were portability, durability, and being able to maintain it. Obviously, if you can't maintain something, the second parts wear out, it's useless now. So we want to make sure it could last a long time, and it could be used well. So the first thing we did to achieve these things is we broke into tiles. Not only did this help us actually make the model, but also it allows you to transport it to different classrooms, allows you to store it in different spaces if you would like. And if something were to break on the model, all you have to do is replace one section and not the entire thing. So it makes maintaining it much easier. The way we did that was through these different connectors. So along the columns are the dovetail joints, along the rows are the slide joints. And essentially what these did is they allowed the model to be assembled without the use of any tools. So you don't have to have a screwdriver, there's no screws that can strip out. So it just makes the model a lot more easier to use, and it will last a lot longer this way too. And here's a video of the tiles actually being manufactured. So they're laid upright inside the printer. And that way the printer actually helps strengthen the parts too. The dovetail joints being laid vertically like that will help strengthen the part. So that way if it were to fall down or something, or it gets banged around in a car, they shouldn't just snap right off. We also made spares, and so this is to maintenance the model. So all of the markers on here can be removed and replaced in the future. So we printed about 70 of the markers as spares and 300 of the plugs. And what the plugs can do is, if it was determined to do something else with the model, maybe like a different type of visual overlay, you don't want the points on there anymore, you simply put the plug in instead, and it restores the land to about what it used to be before the marker was in there.
And we followed this sort of design of making sure it can be sort of improved upon in the future for the website as well. We made it in WordPress, which is a software that our sponsors, KPI, are actually familiar with. And for the markers as well, if you could go to the slide. For the markers as well, they were compressed down using Bitly, which is a sort of link shortener website, but it also provides the ability to change where the Bitly website redirects you to. So if we were to say go into the Bitly sort of page, we could change it so that for example, one of these markers, we wanted to say make it go to a different website sometime in the future, then all we would have to do is change it on the Bitly, rather than having to change the whole QR code and then print it out and then replace it with a new letters.
Awesome, thank you so much, Galen. So now you're probably wondering, we talked about how to design the model, we talked about how to incorporate the content onto the model. What is the final product? What was our goal? We essentially wanted to assess how students between different age groups kind of interact and engage with the model. The two age groups that we kind of tested were 11 and 12-year-olds and 15 and 18-year-olds. Next. So in order to test how the students kind of interacted and engaged with the model, we broke it up into three major phases. First, we wanted the students to kind of just come, look around the model, see how they initially react with the model. Second, we then, I'm blocking it, sorry. Secondly, we wanted to give a survey to the students just to kind of get a general gist of how they liked the model, what they enjoyed about the model. Lastly, we then decided to interview the students to kind of get a deeper understanding as to why they responded in certain ways on the actual survey, on the printed out survey. And then, yeah, so this is the survey that we decided to give the students. It's called the Semantic Differential Survey. Essentially, it's a scale from, it's a scale of two bipolar adjectives. One on the left side is like the negative connotated adjectives, and then you have the positive connotative adjectives. And then we kind of broke up the survey into two major parts because we wanted to check two things. We first wanted to learn how the students overall felt and experienced the model. And then going a little bit deeper, we kind of wanted to understand how the students interacted with the QR codes on the actual website that we generated. And as you can see, this is essentially about the averages of the high school students who filled out the survey. A lot of the students put their X's towards the positive connotating side, which is a good thing, which indicates that the students genuinely loved the experience. They loved interacting with the model when they initially got it. And then we also got positive feedback simply from the multimedia experience, well, a lot of students indicated that they found it very helpful, they found it clear, and they found it interactive. Now, moving on, the students put the X's in the boxes. We wanted to investigate why. Through our interviews with the students, we kind of investigated how and why they specifically chose those responses. With some of our interviews, the interviews were about 7 to 8 students. It was almost like a focus group. And we found that a lot of the older students enjoyed the visual, the audio, and 360 pictures, saying that it kind of brought to life what it was like to be on the Yaris Island, and it helped them kind of envision different locations on the island. We also, a lot of the high school students also mentioned that this map, engaging with the map, was very different from anything they kind of experienced. They said that it was, what is it called? It was a different experience than how they were in the classroom, how they're being taught in the classroom. It's not a traditional way of teaching. Across both age groups, they both noted that they thoroughly liked the details of the map, and with the 11 to 12-year-old students specifically, although they didn't have the direct opportunity to interact with the QR codes, we kind of talked about the design modifications, and a lot of the students said that they wanted the model to have more color. That's what they were looking for. Even though they enjoyed it, they wanted the model to not just be black, just to have a little bit more emphasis. Perfect. Now I'm going to move into a little bit of the web analytics, which is what we kind of found and tracked as the students were scanning the QR codes themselves. So this is kind of the page view breakdown of specifically the high school students who have their own devices and kind of were scanning the QR codes. I know it looks very daunting, so I'm just going to pick out a few major points. So as you can see, the highest percentages of the page views were the cemetery 360 pictures, but if you look, we can ultimately say all of the pages were viewed at least once, which is really helpful. Now moving into the average dwell time per page. Dwell time, just to preface, is essentially the average amount of time each student kind of stayed on the page. As you can see, all of the locations relatively was looked at for a little less than 30 seconds, which kind of indicates that students were kind of scanning it, looking at it, and then we noticed that the students were kind of collaborating with each other. One student, because it was unlabeled, one student would say, "Hey, oh my gosh, we found the 360 image of the prison. You should check it out." Then another student would scan it, and then the process would kind of continue while they were engaging. And then, as you may see the settlement bar that kind of shoots up, and we recognize this as the outlier. We can say this because it's the longest, the average dwell time is the highest, it's about a minute, but in relation to the page view, it was less than 2%, which indicates that one student found this specific location and was super engaged with that specific location and just focusing on that location specifically. Okay. Now to kind of summarize those two graphics that you guys saw. So we kind of noticed that the way that we designed our model, was to allow multiple users to kind of walk around and scan it. Because of this kind of enforced the collaboration-driven mindset, if that makes any sense, in which students were learning and engaging by collaborating with each other. In addition to that, we kind of also learned that with the dwell time and having all of the dwell times kind of relatively under 20 seconds, it kind of showed that the students were kind of going at their own pace as they were scanning the QR codes. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we realized that the engagement was driven by discussion and the students were more so talking with each other. And we recognized that the page view count isn't directly linked to how the students actually engaged with the model. Okay. Awesome. Now that we have all of this information and feedback from the interviews, from the semantic surveys, and from just letting the students engage with it, we came up with 3 major recommendations to kind of improve and for like the next steps for KPI. So the first, we wanted to kind of make the markers interchangeable. Like Grant said, he printed different extra markers and plugs for the model. The way that we would hope we kind of see, or we would recommend campaign to kind of use it, would be if a younger group of kids came and they saw the model and they wanted to engage with it. A lot of the content, like we talked about, is a little bit complex and it is a little bit deep and it is kind of hard to talk about. So when those younger students would come and kind of engage with the model, they would remove certain links so that it becomes more age appropriate for the student groups who are coming to engage with the model. Whereas when you're having students who are older and have learned the comprehensive skills and kind of have a little bit more, I'll say maturity and understanding the depth in which Syros' history is, they can have almost unlimited access to the different content that we created. In addition to that, we also have the option, like Cameron was saying, of having QR codes instead of being directly linked to the textual content. It can be linked to the actual media, like the 360 photos like that Dom was showing, or the audio sounds, especially for the younger students. Our second recommendation, like I mentioned, a lot of the students, especially the younger students, recognized that they needed more color. They needed something to visually stimulate them a little bit more. So we came up with two possible options. One, having a projector-based augmented reality. Essentially what this means is that we would make the whole model white and have a projector casting over live satellite images of the Syros Island, kind of giving it more of an augmented reality feel. We recognize that this is a little financially expensive. So the other potential option is hiring a professional painter who will be able to paint on the terrain that kind of paint on the realistic terrain, if that makes sense. Okay. And then lastly, we wanted to see improvements in terms of model integration. We recognized that a lot of the students were very excited, especially the young kids were very excited when they first came in. I remember walking in and it was almost like good chaos, like all the students were very excited, very jittery, very excited to kind of engage with the model itself. And it can kind of get a little bit overwhelming to track how the students are actually engaging with it. So a way to kind of combat that, or to kind of address that, is by having smaller group of students kind of walking around and engaging with it instead of a big classroom all engaging with the model at once. And then the second recommendation that we were possibly thinking about was during the session that we were observing, our KPEA partners essentially called up a student and gave them a scenario in which they were told to kind of, if you were to guess, where would the seals live? And the student came up and the student pointed to where they were, and it was super interactive. Unfortunately, this kind of limits the other students who aren't chosen to come up and kind of engage and see the different aspects of the interactive model. A way that we kind of thought about combating that is by having, like what Dom was showing, the student coming up and kind of casting whatever information or interactive that they're showing onto the board, so that all the students in the classrooms can kind of understand and experience that interactive aspect of the website without necessarily having to be the one called up to go and engage with the model.
Yep. So, in conclusion, we want to acknowledge everybody that helped us along the way, especially KPEA and the WWF, because they provided so much help. The WWF gave us lots of content for the website, and we want to thank our partners Alexia, Rubina, and Christos for their guidance and support along the way, as well as Professor Konstantinos Vailas, who graciously provided the 3D printer for this. So without him, we would not have this beautiful model, so we want to thank him as well. And Panos helped us a lot with some of the early stages of getting our project underway and finding the right people to talk to, And then we of course want to thank our advisor, Professor Robert Hirsch, for his guidance along the way. And briefly, I'd like to speak on my experience in Syros. I really enjoyed spending so much time here. I like the weather. Being able to swim in October and November is not something I'm very used to, so it's great to get to experience that, as well as the local cuisine. I like eating at the restaurants. And then generally with our project, I think we all enjoyed seeing the two different age groups interact with the model and see the smiles on their faces as they found the seal noises. And as the older students explored the 360 cameras, got to enjoy all that content that we put so much work into. So we want to thank everybody for listening. And
So yeah, if people are interested, want to check out the model at the end of all the presentations, it'll be over there in the corner. And if you do happen to stop by, you can feel free to take a small island or prison. A little parting favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you ready to go? Good. Okay, so our project was on the Voices of Syros, investigating public space and place attachment in Hermopolis. I'm Liam.
I'm Alex.
My name is Cole. And we worked in partnership with Apana Media, SCE, Maria Constantopoulou, and Andrianos. So let's start with an icebreaker. If all you guys could please pull out your phones, and in one word, what should an ideal public space make you feel? And then please keep your phones out after you've responded, as the responses will populate on your mobile device. Has everyone had a chance to respond? Okay, perfect. So now, if you look at your devices, we'll move on to the responses. So we have, if you look at your responses, our main way a public space should make you feel is connected, calm, happy, safe, free, comfortable, peace, and it should have a sense of community. Now, whether you guys realize it or not, but we just assigned place attachment. We just assigned values to these public spaces. And now Cole will take it away talking about place attachment.
So place attachment describes the emotional connections we have of foreign places in our lives. This is typically influenced by memories and experiences we have of these places that help shape who we are. Now, public spaces are influential in forming these place attachments, as when people meet in parks, in squares, at the beach, or anywhere else one might gather, they create bonds with other people, helping create memories that help form solid place attachment. So too often in urban planning, decisions are made with little respect for the community. This is known as top-down placemaking. And placemaking is the process of interacting with the community is involving the community in the decision-making process. placemaking is a process of involving the community in the decision-making process. And this happens through activities such as interviews, participatory mapping, or any other activity that may help involve the community in creating the spaces that they will interact with.
Alright, so now that Cole has defined the terms of place attachment and placemaking, place attachment meaning, what we feel is, the place gives us, like what emotions does the place give us, right? Now we have to realize that there is an opportunity here. And the opportunity is that a lot of the public spaces in Thermopylae are consistently changing. And the changes have been varying between positive and negative, but mainly negative changes. There are a lot of changes in terms of more space being in Thermopylae, and a lack of public space, which again, as Andrianos stated before, is a very contested subject, right? So our opportunity is to contribute placemaking efforts on Syros through place attachment analysis. And then our purpose of the project is to understand Thermopylae's residents use, value, and form attachments to public spaces. But how do we do this? We can only do this by actually asking them what their lived experiences are. Which brings us to our objectives. So our first objective, our first objective is to identify and map meaningful public spaces. Our second one is to examine how place attachment develops across generations. And then our third one is to analyze how public spaces have changed due to tourism and Thermopylae's development decisions. So our approach. So for our first approach, we conducted a lot of semi-structured interviews. And when I mean a lot, I mean a lot. So this is a picture of me interviewing one of our residents. And basically, through these semi-structured interviews, we are able to gain the residents' lived experiences. These are things that cannot be found on books or in research. These are things that people are actually telling us. Now that we know what the stories are, we need to know where are these stories happening. The stories are happening through the maps that we give residents. So we decided to print out some maps of Thermopylae, hand out the maps to the residents, and Liam is going to pass them around so you guys can see. And basically, we asked them to place their neighborhood, place the places that they like to go to, and then what are the emotions that bring up those places. So by this we can see, okay, now we know what the stories are, and now we can visually see where the stories are being located.
We also use QGIS mapping to help examine the changes in public spaces over time. So we made a number of layers of information on a QGIS map, including a number of historical base maps from the 20th and 21st centuries showing the changes in Thermopylae, as well as a number of polygon layers which highlight changes in public space as well as important spaces in the city.
And now for our last approach that we did, we conducted a Google Form survey. So this survey enabled us to gather multiple different responses in a short amount of time. And through this survey, we were able to ask residents what their opinions were on space and what they would like to see for future ideal spaces, which would be useful for recommendations in urban planning. Moving on to our findings. So our findings involve lived stories, spatial change, themes, and community perceptions. Okay, before I dive into the stories, it's important to note that a thing that we have to realize is that children's place of playing has changed. So this picture on the left is an open field of an older resident's like neighborhood. This is where he used to play. And as you can see, there's a lot of like, there used to be a lot more greenery and stuff like that, but there were trees over here, and there used to be a lot more land, right? A lot of open space, right? This picture on the right, this is Miali Square, we all know Miali Square. But what do we see here? We see children playing, we see them, it's almost like as if there's obstacles in the place where they can play. And this is crucial because children's sense of place are being impacted because the places that they can play on are very limited and constrained. So that brings me to the first story, Lefteris. Okay, so Lefteris described a lot of different games that he played as a child. One of the first things that he mentioned were he played football on the open fields until sundown. So he was able to use the open spaces, and he was able to create his own imagination through the open spaces. Something that cannot really be done if the spaces are limited. Another thing that Lefteris mentioned is something that we genuinely not find anywhere else. I don't know about you, but when I came to Syros, I did not think that I was going to ever come across a riverbed, which basically, this riverbed is, like when rain would fill up, it's like kids would use like toy boats, and when it was dry, they would use toy cars, and then Lefteris described this game that he played with his friends, and they would take a stone, and with the stone, they would place it on the ground, and then they would throw the other stone, and then if you could touch both of your feet with the stones, then you would win the game. And you can just see that the imagination that these children had were all created because of the space that was around them. And then lastly, Lefteris also mentioned different neighborhoods. So the different types of neighborhoods that Lefteris mentioned also had their own kind of like teams, and different kids felt like they were a part of this team. They felt very prideful of their neighborhood. There were kind of like these rivalries, but it was all in good fun. It was never anything bad, but they felt very prideful of where they came from. And the sense of belonging is what is important here, because it is all shaped off of place.
This is a comparison of 3 different historical base maps in QGIS. As you can see on the left is one from 1945, in the middle of 2007, and on the right is 2023. The yellow shape in these pictures represents Wallachia, which is a neighborhood field from the Lefteris' childhood. So, as you can see, in 1945 and 2007, it is an open green field. However, from 2007 to 2023, we can see it's changed during this time period into what is now a park. These are pictures of Wallachia now. As you can see in the space where children once played and created memories and lifelong friendships, is now full of cars. This is an example of one of many examples in Thermopylae where open spaces are no longer accessible to the community. There are many other examples of open spaces in the city which are locked to the public. This is Pevkakia, once housed a track and field and a basketball court. Today it is locked off and completely overgrown. And again, an example of a waste opportunity to provide valuable open space for the people in our home. Scattered throughout the city are a number of closed playgrounds and parks. This example is a Metamorphosis playground, and this forces residents who want to access this space to either hop the fence or instead gather in the street. And this QGIS picture on the side represents the number of open fields in our model. Little creepy. Wrong one, I don't use it. So as you can see, the red polygons represent previously mentioned Wallachia and Pevkakia. The yellow polygons which are no longer accessible. The yellow polygons represent the soccer fields or the football fields in Hermopolis. All these are either locked or either too far away to be easily accessible for people living in the city. And that leaves Meali Square, which is not designed for many of the play activities you see happening today in the square, like soccer or riding scooters. However, as I have discussed, there are very limited viable options for these children.
So next we will analyze Vivi's place attachments to her neighborhood of Sayana and informal public spaces that she grew up around. So some of Vivi's first interactions with public space came through the childhood games that she played with her friends. So in the narrow streets, the alleyways, the courtyards surrounding her house in Sayana, these informal public spaces was where she and her friends grew. It's where they formed connections with the space, their surroundings. And it's where they gained a sense of the world around them. So I'm going to walk you through some games that they played. So the first game that they played was hide and seek throughout the neighborhood. But touching on the second one was the stair game. So where they started on the stairs, her and her friends, they would slowly make their way down the stairs, playing different mini games amongst them, to where when they got to the bottom, they won. Another game called Amariza, which to the Americans is kind of like a game of capture the flag, is where they would start on these telephone poles, and this would be one of the castles, and that would be the other castle over there. And the teams would race back and forth, trying to tag the other team's castle and make it back without being tagged. The importance lies within these pathways that they chose. These interconnected pathways showed their exploratory nature. They were learning these spaces. They were grounding themselves in public space. And from these games, it's important to note that these became the true stages of childhood. They shaped their social connections with each other, their surroundings, and they had a sense of creativity, risk-taking by going through each of these spaces, by going through places unknown. They were exploring their surroundings. And then they were creating deep meanings of what it means to be from Sayana. So I was saving kind of the best for last, but it was a game, or rather a show that Vivi and her friends put on with the children of her neighborhood. It was kind of a spin-off of Carrioza's Shadow Theater, where her and her friends would come up with storylines, and then they would display them to the children of other neighborhoods, usually for only a few coins, as she said. So, referring to this image on the right, we have the brown door, where they hung up a cloth, and then they put a light behind it, and then the characters that they cut out, put on sticks, they would display their stories, while the kids of other neighborhoods and her neighbor, Sayana, would line up on this wall over here. This next brings us into the importance of informal public space. Reflecting back on Vivian Lefteris' story, these spaces, they weren't just space, they became place to them. They found meaning within the usage of these places, and these places became emotionally charged to them. They anchored both of their identities. They anchored their identities to these neighborhoods and these play areas. It is important to note that these just aren't one-off cases. Across generations that we interviewed, we found that these neighborhoods, these alleys, these courtyards held significant meaning in personal lives. And I think it's important to ask the question, why? Reflecting back through past and present circumstances surrounding public space, we realized that the qualities that are in formal public spaces that now are closed, that now are restricted, or don't even exist. In other words, they're not able for people to access, as Cole was saying, that these qualities are found within the informal spaces. Pride, social connection, self-growth, creativity. They're still present, they just lie within the informal spaces that shape the place that residents of Hermopolis call home. Now, this has been touched on, but public spaces serving as emotional anchors for the residents and everybody who uses them. So I wanted to bring to light the idea of our emotions, belonging identity, and sense of identity. So let's look back at the responses of the icebreaker. So we had a sense of calm, connected, relaxed, peaceful, happy, safe. And I want to acknowledge that these same themes came up when we were talking to Syros residents, across the teenagers, across older, and it demonstrates that while public spaces may change, the feelings that ground you to them will not change. And it creates, and your designated importance of the public space will stay forever. And these physical spaces just aren't spaces, they become place to us. And they carry the memories and meanings that bind us to our communities. So next, I want to move on to an aggregate of all our responses of participants. So in total, we had 34 responses, and it's important to note that these percentages are indicative of our sample, not the entire population of Hermopolis, as well as the percentages. So starting off, 76% say that there's a lack of public space in Hermopolis. This does not mean that the other percentage, or the other half of this percentage, says that there are access to, there's full access to public space in Hermopolis. It just means that this wasn't a main comment or direct mention inside of their, when they were talking to us. So 74% said that there's a sense of municipal neglect, poor maintenance, and ongoing deterioration with public spaces. 58% said that there was a desire for more greenery in these spaces, dense vegetation, shaded when. And also 50% said that there was a lack of safety and accessibility for these public spaces. Moving on to 41%. Was tourism affecting the usage of public space for residents? And they said that this was negative. However, there were some views that were towards the other side that's saying that tourism, while it does crowd public spaces, in a sense it can make spaces more lively. So most responses that indicated or spoke about tourism spoke about it in a negative light. So just to refer back to the other 59%, this was not them speaking on tourism in a positive light. This was just the lack of tourism being spoke on. Which brings us
to our conclusion. Yes.
To our partners, Ana Maria, Marina, and Andrianos. It has been a pleasure working with you guys. You guys truly supported this project, and honestly, without you guys, this research probably wouldn't have, been the way that it is. So we want to give a lot of thanks to you guys, and we also want to give thanks to our advisor, Robert Hirsch, of course, for supporting us throughout. And we also want to give thanks to Panos, who helped us coordinate and kind of helped us branch into the realm of talking to people. Because I think out of all of the projects, we were the most social of the projects. And we really had to rewire our brains in a way of going from an engineering point to a social point. And then I would also like to thank Dr. Abram Ravidas as well for the QGIS work that he helped us with. And everyone else that contributed to this project, our team as well. And, the question that we have to ask is, what is our place attachment? And, I think I can speak for all of us that being on Syros for pretty much 2 months, I have learned a lot about the city, and it is truly just a wonderful place. People are kind, the little cafes, and just feeling just feeling very involved in the community. And I can see that people truly care, and that's something that I will take home with me. I feel like I will definitely take home with me. But yeah, Syros has been really great. Weather is very nice. And furthermore, we would like you guys to have a voice as well. And you guys can scan our QR code to help Ana Maria with more insights for surveys. This would help them with further information as well. And then our art story maps, which basically link a story of our project. and provides more information as well. So, thank you.
So, welcome to our project, Trust the Tap. We were tasked with a plan for creating water refill stations on the University of the Aegean, here on Syros specifically. My name is Aaron.
I'm Henry.
I'm Vino.
Cool. So before we start, we're gonna have a little fun, wake you guys up because we're the last presentation, and I promise it's not boring. So to start, something that we did that we'll talk about a little bit later in our presentation is that we held this fun little blind water taste test with university students. So what that entailed is we set up a table on the square, and anytime a student walked by, we're like, hey, can you go over here? Do you have like 5 minutes of your time? And we offered them 3 different sources of water, 3 different cups, and we asked them if they could evaluate what do they think about the water,
Right here.
Cute. Okay. So this was this 14-point scale that has been used in previous water taste tests across different studies that have also tried to implement water filling stations or just have evaluated different water sources for marketing purposes. They use this 14-point scale when asking their participants to evaluate what they thought about certain different sources of water. So we're going to do a little bit of that today. We have 3 volunteers. If you guys could please come on. If you guys want to introduce yourself real quick, just say your name.
My name is Stella, and I'm a university student in Ktίριο.
Να μιλάτε πιο δυνατά, παιδιά, να μιλάτε.
My name is Manos. I'm also a student of the University of Ktίριο.
And I'm Liam, a student of the University of WPI.
Welcome, thank you for joining us. I know Stella and Manos have not participated in the study when we had it on the square, so this is the first for them. Welcome. Liam's been with us while we've been trying to run this study and do our project, so he's a little familiar, but...
I haven't done it though.
Hopefully it'll be just a surprise for them as it is for us. So, I'm going to keep explaining. These guys are going to start the study with them. Okay. So each water is a different type of water. Won't tell you the details just yet. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But I can say that one water comes from a tap water source. At least one water comes from a filtered tap water source. And at least one water source comes from bottled water. So we know here in Syros there are a lot of mysteries about the tap water. I know a lot of people don't trust it. We'll talk about it a little bit later as well. So we challenge students to kind of put that aside and test 3 different types of water to see what do they think about it. Do we find that when they don't know what the water sources are, do they still say that the filtered tap water tastes funny, or do they notice it completely and they notice that bottled water is completely better, no question about it. So that was the purpose of this study, to kind of see if what people's thoughts really correlate with their actions. So while I continue, I figured we have a little bit of audience participation. So can I get a consensus? Do you guys typically use bottled water at home? Do you have a filter that you use? Filter? Do you go back and forth, or now that you have a filter, you only use the filter? And you like? Yes. No problem? This is great to know. This is awesome. It makes us so happy. Anyone else want to share?
I refill.
Just bottle?
And it's difficult.
It's difficult, yeah, because there's not a lot of options. Are you a university student as well?
No, I'm a teacher.
You're a teacher. Oh, where do you teach?
In primary.
Oh, that's awesome. So at the primary school, do they usually have bottles?
Yeah, they have filter water in my school, but in this house that they just bottles and it's
What do you think about the filtered water? Are you okay drinking it? Do you not like the taste? Or issues about it not being clean?
what is tap water?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it.
You know, yeah, that's what most here. Even we leave in a few days, and after being here for so long, my hair is starting to feel very sticky. Yes. All right.
Cool.
Thank you for chatting. All right. So you will see this awesome, beautiful 14-point scale again when we talk about people's results. So we're gonna hold off on that for now. We're gonna move to the next slide.
Alright, so for some of the motivations of this project, locals on Syros, they mostly drink bottled water, which contributes to the plastic waste. And because of that, the university is following the EU directive to reduce plastic waste and to adopt sustainability policies. And one way of doing that is by reducing bottled water consumption. And in hopes of that, the university wants this project to become the first stepstone block for Syros to adopt these sustainable policies.
All right, so some past refill station case studies. So, like I mentioned, how other universities and other practices who are trying to implement water filling stations or for marketing purposes have utilized this blind water taste test. Well, we had to research a lot of those universities and all other institutions that wanted to implement water filling stations to kind of get a sense on what different things that they have to combat in regards to student perceptions. What do the students already think about the filtered tap water? Are there biases that they're going to have to work with? Is the switch to filtered water going to be easy? So having to analyze their behaviors, taking that into account, do students have a habit of drinking bottled water versus using a bottle every day? And also engaging in promotional materials. How can they advertise? How can they make sure that students know about their water filling stations? How can they put them analyzing location where students spend a lot of their time, making sure that they're put in a place that they're going to be used?
All right, and just to note some examples, Bryant University in Rhode Island found that students highly distrusted the water, the tap water, even though researchers found that according to water quality testing data, it was safe to drink. It met the standards for the levels of the impurities. Our school, WPI, also found this perception of distrust. And they also found that students prefer the taste of bottled water, which is one way that they address these perceptions is through the tap water challenge, the challenge we just did, where they were trying to find if students could differentiate the taste between bottled water and tap water. And the results were that they couldn't. And not only was this method a data collection method, it was also a promotional strategy. And some other promotional strategies that came from different universities. One, Edgar College, they host different university events to get students engaged in sustainability and reduction of plastic waste. For example, they host an art show that challenges students to use plastic materials to create these beautiful artistic displays. And they also have educational seminars that educate students on plastic waste. And for some context, this is how tap water reaches to taps in homes and businesses in Thermopylae. First, the pumping station takes the seawater, and during that process, it filters out the sediments, and then after that, it goes to the desalination plant where it goes through reverse osmosis. It takes out all the impurities, which all the impurities are put back into seawater. After that, the desalinated water is taken to water storage tanks, which will eventually reach to taps in Thermopylae.
Alright, so trying to understand the current situation at the University of the Aegean on Syros. So currently there are 3 existing filtered water taps at the university. One only admin have access to, administration, professors, faculty. 2 students have access to. One belongs, according, if you look at this map, in the Gymnasio building, which is the building at the top of the hill of their main university. If you walk in, it's all the way in the back on the left corner by the bathrooms. And then another tap, the one that students use the most often, belongs to the student cafeteria that almost all students eat at least once a day for their meal times.
Cool. So we want to understand student perceptions, habits, and their barriers to the usage of filtered water. So to do that, we did some semi-structured interviews with students in the cafeteria. We then used that data to inform our survey, which we then distributed to students. And then finally, we held this tap water challenge on the square.
All right, so what do students think about filtered drinking water after all these interviews and surveys? Not good. Students do not like the water. They think it's unhealthy. It tastes weird. It's dangerous. There are bad things in it. It's dirty. It tastes funny. It's salty. It's bitter. So these are a lot of things that we needed to understand so that would inform our approach on how we would give students access to information that would allow them to use water filter stations.
Now, we're going to talk about, we know what they're thinking, but we haven't quantified really how much or how confident they are in the tap water that is currently being provided on campus, specifically the filtered tap water. So here we can see their confidence, as in they're not very confident or they are not confident at all in this tap water. They do not think that it's safe, and they do not think that they could be able to drink it, and that's not healthy for them. Move on. So, but we want to ask why. So one of the things that comes to mind first is safety and quality at the very top. This is 1 through 5, so the darker the color, the more important it is to them. So with safety and quality, around 21 people said that this was most important to them, that we make sure that they know that this water is safe and of good quality for them to be able to drink. Of note, the other two would be access and then taste of the water, so making sure that it's accessible to them. Confronting this barrier is very important, making sure that they know where to access the water and access the filter taps on campus when they are. So talking about the first one, now that we know and we have quantified the amount of each category that they care about for when considering what to drink, we can go into the interviews and find specific stories or almost connections to what they said in the survey that is quantified. Some that come to mind immediately are students telling us they may have kidney stones, that the rust of the pipes is really bad and it infiltrates the water, that there could be dead animals, or that glass particles could be in the water. These are some of the most shocking ones that we found that students believed or perceived when they were thinking of whether they wanted to drink tap water that is filtered or not.
Yeah, cool. So another main barrier to students' uses of drink-filled water is a lot of students had no idea that they could access these filtered taps at all. They had no idea that they even existed. And that's because there's kind of a disconnect between what students knew and what the university has been communicating. Because you have this picture, this is what the inside of the building looks like. There's no signage, there's nothing telling students that, oh, there's a filtered tap here, this tap is filtered, this tap is safe. And so for a lot of students, when we asked them, they said, oh wow, I had no idea there was a tap there. Like, I'd love to use that. And so it wasn't just a matter of distrust. For a lot of students, they had no idea that these sources were available to them at all. And another issue is these taps aren't the most accessible to students. So even for students who knew about them, who are willing to use them, taps aren't in places that are easy to use. The cafeteria tap that Ken mentioned is the most popular. I mean, but it's only available during meal times, and other times the building is locked. In addition, the tap in the gymnasium building, that's not a building where students often have classes, which means that most students spend most of their day away from filtered tap sources, and so they don't have the opportunity to access those filtered taps, and so of course they don't use them.
All right, so now the big question. What drinking water did students prefer? So before we dive into this, we're going to go over the results that we just did for our study. Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much. All right. So, actually, quick recap real quick. Then we'll go into the results. Sorry to keep you guys on your toes. So, like I mentioned before, this water challenge, we provided students with 3 different types of water, and we asked them if they could evaluate them based on a beautiful 14-point scale. And actually, just kidding. Here she is again. All right. So keeping the scale in mind, just to go over a little bit. So anything saying 13, 14, the bigger the number, the better the water. They like the taste, they would want to drink it every day. While if you got close towards the middle, okay, it tastes fine. I would drink it every day. It's like slightly off, but like I would be okay drinking it every day. If you get towards the end, this is disgusting, get it out of my mouth, I don't want it here. So using the scale, we really wanted to understand if the students could differentiate and tell us that the filtered tap water that they were drinking, if it was so disgusting that they did not want to drink it. Keep you on your toes for that. Now we're going to go over our study results. Can you move on your phone again, please? Thank you so much. So for the 3 sources that we use, our source A, we use that is the filtered tap that is in the university. That's the one that's at the end of the hallway that students don't really know about because the university didn't provide information to. According to our lovely contestants, our lovely volunteers of our tap water study, we had someone rated as a 13, a 10, and an 11. That's pretty good for a filtered water, I'm going to say. All right. Our second source was the filtered tap that's in the cafeteria. That's the one that the students are most used to. They use it without thinking. They don't think much of it. That's the one that they've used the most. For that one, we have a 13. Thanks. A 13, a 12, and an 11. Again, that's pretty good for filtered water. All right, and our last one, the last source that we've had our volunteers drink today and our participants on the day that we were on the square was the bottled water. For this one, Aaron, your phone closed again, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry about that, guys. Ooh, interesting. All right, for this last one, we had, this is the bottled water, we had an 8, a 13, and a 9. I think that was the lowest combination of the 3. So that's what we were trying to get students to confront, because a lot of, for the most part, this was the results that we were seeing. We were seeing that some students were rating that bottled water was their favorite, no questions asked, and that's what their numbers were showing us. However, for every student that we got that showed us that, we had easily another student that preferred the filtered water, the filtered tap water at the university, the filtered tap water in the cafeteria. When we actually graphed our data, we did find that bottled water ultimately was the most preferred. We were expecting that. We asked students before even taking the study, hey, which water do you prefer? Which water do you use on a daily basis? Almost every single one of them said bottled water. However, we found in these results that filtered water, despite the claims in interviews, in our surveys of it being so disgusting, of it being unhealthy, of people not wanting to drink it, period, when we told them, hey, you're going to be drinking at least one filtered water source, they continued to participate in the study, and they didn't rank it, a 0, a 2. We have some outliers here and there, but for the most part, their averages are only one off from each other, with bottled water being 10.38, the filtered water at the university being 9.16, and the filtered water at the cafeteria being 8.7, the lowest of the 3, despite being the one that the students are most used to.
Yeah, so we want to understand how students kind of made their decisions on what they drink or don't drink. And the way we did this was through a heuristic lens. So heuristics are kind of mental shortcuts that kind of make decision-making easier. And so the first one that we noticed was the endorsement heuristic. So if you're trying to make a decision, you're more likely to give more weight to opinions that you've heard from people you trust. Obviously. Makes sense. And one thing we found is a lot of students aren't native to Syros. They come to Syros to study, and most students back home can drink the water just fine. But when they get to Syros, they get told the tap water is bad. You can't drink this. The tap water is dangerous. Most students in our interviews said, oh yeah, I don't drink the tap water. I've been told it's bad. My friends have said it's bad. Like, everyone knows it's bad. And so when people are making those decisions, they're more likely to use that information from their friends, their professors, people they trust, and it can kind of sort of cloud their decision making. And then we can move on to the anchoring heuristic. So the anchoring heuristic is when you're learning about something for the first time, the first sort of piece of information that you receive tends to kind of form the foundation for how you think. And so these students are coming to Syros, they're exposed maybe for the first time that tap water could be dangerous. And so their thought process is being built around this idea that tap water is bad. And so whenever they approach tap water, in the rest of their time in Syros, it's being built off of the idea that tap water is unsafe.
There are two other heuristics that we had psychologically analyzed for analyzing student decision-making and perception to filtered water. One of which is the availability heuristic. A lot of big words, I know. Basically that means that when you're trying to make a decision, sometimes one will make a decision based off of the first thing that pops into your head when you are questioned or making a decision about a certain something that triggers the first thing that comes to your head. That can be something triggered by an emotional response, shock, fear, anger. So if you're trying to make a decision about whether or not you want to drink filtered water, and the first thing that pops into your head is that, oh, I heard a story once about someone who had a kidney stone, and that stuck with you because it was so shocking. Remember how you felt when you learned that information. It's going to be the first thing that pops into your head, so people will naturally associate filtered water with kidney stones, using that to make their decision and naturally avoid drinking filtered tap water rather than being open to the idea of trying filtered tap water and letting that one notion kind of rule their decision making. The recognition heuristic tells us that people are more likely to make decisions based on something that they trust, something that they are familiar with. We did mention that students come to Syros usually drinking the filtered tap water, the tap water that's available at home, not in Syros. Yet when they move here, they make the switch and they don't drink it. They don't drink the tap water again. They learn that it's bad. So naturally, bottled water becomes what is better, what is safer, what is cleaner. So if they were given the option to choose bottled water or a filtered water option, they're more likely to choose this bottled water option because that is what they recognize. That is what they have deemed familiar. And that is also because lack thereof of filtered tap water options available on the island, especially at the university. We've learned that they were not hidden, but just not advertised. They exist, but no one knew about them. So naturally, that creates blindness in blindness in one's thinking because they are used to the bottled water and not exposed to the other, which doesn't challenge their belief systems.
Based on our findings, what should the university do to address these misconceptions that are shaped by heuristics, these mental shortcuts, and also how to improve the usage of existing refill stations? Well, for one, we can improve the visibility of refill stations, and in order to do that, we recommend that the university install signs. These are some examples of signs that we made. Basically, they point towards the direction of nearby filtered tap water sources. And we also recommend that university creates campus maps. In particular, one map, so we recommend that the university create one map that shows all the buildings that have refill stations, and the other map is specific to a building, showing like where the refill station is in that building.
Cool. So the next step, obviously, is to increase the accessibility of filtered water for students. So we recommend installing filtered water stations in the buildings where students spend most of their time. So one place recommended is still on the main university campus, but out in front, outside the amphitheater building, where students spend most of the time. Because if they're not going into that building in the back, it's not going to get used. So it's better to install it somewhere where students will congregate. In addition, we recommend installing one in the studio building by the casino, because that's where students spend their time. And if they're spending their time near filtered water sources, they're more likely to use them. And so we recommend that these filtered water sources are installed by WaterShop. They're just a local company that provides, filters, stuff like that, and they already manage and support the existing filtered water stations already on campus.
All right, so now that we've addressed accessibility and now that we've addressed the knowledge for students to find these filtered taps, we can now address the student distrust. And how can we do that? Well, we can provide transparency. So currently the municipality does provide quality testing data for the water being provided across Syros. Now this is very hard to find and it's like a couple pages in their website. So we're recommending a QR code to be able to access that data, as well as a simplified, some sort of simplified overview of what this data says, saying basically that it is going to be safe. We are also, though, going to say that there does need to be some proof from the university to provide water testing data itself at the taps as well, which would be good as well, to almost provide individualized testing data from filter to filter rather than across the municipality as a whole. So now, the other one that we need to address is the anchoring heuristic that we talked about previously, which, as a reminder, that was when students are first getting here, they are being told by friends, by other people on the island, that the tap water in general is bad. So how do we address this? We're recommending orientations, we're recommending pamphlets when they first get here in order to address the misinformation, to be able to tell them that the filtered water from the tap water is okay to drink on campus. So those are both ways to address the almost lack of knowledge, misconceptions that are being moved around campus when they're first getting here.
All right, last. To ensure the longevity of this project and to measure the success, the university can implement long-term promotional strategies. One example, the university can host events. Like I mentioned earlier, back in the background research, the university can host art challenges that students can participate in, where they can collect reusable materials and create artistic displays. They can also participate in educational seminars. Furthermore, flyers can be put up. These flyers like these can be put up over time to ensure that people are knowledgeable, or they learn about filtered tap water sources, safety and the quality of it, etc. Also, the university can implement social media campaigns that will get students engaged in a digital sense through various means like WhatsApp, TikTok, and Instagram. Lastly, the university can install these flow sensors that track how many bottles are saved, and students will have access to this information. Not only will this measure the usage and measure the success of this particular refill station, and also reassure students that they're a part of, they're being sustainable, they're recycling.
So before I conclude, we have a few acknowledgements. I want to thank the university for sponsoring this project. The goal of this project was to help the university, but also to serve as a precedent, to serve as a proposal that other universities who want to implement this project can use us as a resource for their background research, similar to what we use the other universities for our background research, and we can all learn and be sustainable together. We want to thank the municipality on Syros. They gave us a tour of their desalination system and allowed us to better understand the water systems on Syros. We also want to thank the Environmental Observatory. We learned a lot from them, and they taught us about different sustainable measures that they had articulated, and also how to promote a sustainable initiative on the university. Similar to Coins of Maria, who is also on here, we met with them, and they helped us with sustainability initiatives and how to gauge interest and promotional strategies, and also helped us to further understand how people perceive the water quality when they come to Syros. And lastly, I want to thank WaterShop they're the ones that provide the filters for the university. So we met with them and they were able to give us some very interesting data, and we learned how the filters work so that we can share that information with students. So thank you to all of them. And thank you again to Dr. Parkmas Cavazos, who came up to be here, please. And Professor Robert here. And also not on this slide, but shout out to Anna. Thank you so much for your help. You gave us a tour of the university. Before coming here, we were under the impression that it was going to be a bigger university because that's how it is in America. Everything is big. Right? So we came here, we learned that it was a smaller university with different places throughout. We tried to come up with ways that we had to have water stations in all these places because it shouldn't just be limited to one. Everyone should have access to water stations. So thank you again for listening to us, and we hope that you enjoy.
Thank you, everybody, for being such a great audience. It's very important, of course, for our students to have an audience as receptive and as engaged as you are to help them understand the meaning of what they have done here. So thank you very much for that. And thank you, students. This is like one of the great moments of the IQP, the experience when they can lower their shoulders and exhale and be relieved of the task of a presentation. So thank you. Well done, everyone. I could be sort of sadistic and ask you all to do a tap water challenge, but we have something else in mind. We have using the heuristic of the availability. We have a wine available in the back, which is coming out, and we could have a blind tasting or not. Anyway, thank you very much, and if you want to play around with the Syros model, the students will be up there if you're wanting to do that. And students will be milling about, and you can ask them questions as well. But thank you again, and we're looking forward to seeing you around the wine table.